amen, amen. So we said earlier that this was a Shabbat where we invite some friends to do some sharing, and we also get to celebrate and rest, but we also have to find some renewal because we have work to do. We have work to do in our community. And this weekend, when we mark and celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King, we are going to hear some friends who are involved and represent the NAACP here in Boulder County. I wanted just to share one quick thing. You know, the NAACP was founded in 1909. It's the nation's foremost, largest, and most widely recognized civil rights organization. There's more than 500,000 members and supporters throughout the United States and the world. And they are advocates for civil rights in communities all across the country, leading grassroots campaigns for equal opportunity and conducting voter mobilization. Now, the NAACP and the Reform movement have had a historic relationship. Not only does Rabbi Jonah Pesner, who's the director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, sit on the National Board of Directors, but also Kivi Kaplan was one of its earliest supporters. Our Religious Action Center is named the Kivi Kaplan Religious Action Center. Once upon a time, he was the vice chairman of the Union of American Hebrew Congregations. Now we call it the Union for Reform Judaism. And he served as the national president of the NAACP from 1966 to 1975. And while it was long overdue, our congregation recently joined the Boulder County chapter as a member congregation of the chapter. And I'm going to encourage all of you, as I have, to also join the NAACP Boulder County chapter. We'll tell you more about how to do that at the end of the service. And right now, I'm going to have two guests, two friends, two new friends for some of us, going to come forward and join us. Jude Landsman, involved in our community's Jewish community connected to Bonei Shalom, and the chair of economic development. Yes? Okay, I was close. And also Dr. Sheila Davis, who is a vice president of the branch here and the director of the Office of Health Equity in the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment. So folks, please come and join us. The safest route is up the ramp. And we hope that as you entered and picked up one of the prayer books, that you also have one of these little handouts. And if not, I'll make sure that I get some for you. Hi, folks. Here's your microphone. Good Shabbos.
Greetings. I'm Jude Landsman. I'm also known as Yocheved Landsman in the community. I'm chair of the Freedom Fund and the Economic Opportunity Committee of our branch, NAACP branch. And how wonderful to hear you encourage your congregants to join the NAACP. I echo that. I do really honor and grew up with a legacy of the tradition in Judaism of fighting for civil rights, of doing justice, loving mercy, and that those are action points. And I encourage my fellows, members of the tribe, to do the same, that is our commandment. That to me is what Torah is about. NAACP has a really simple mission: to eliminate race-based discrimination and promote the equal rights of all peoples. And we're doing that. We're making an impact in Boulder County. One of the ways we're doing that is by presenting the Walk With Me Black History series of events. Opening on Sunday, after our MLK program, we have a photo exhibit from the Withers collection, probably the largest in the country outside of Memphis, Tennessee, where the museum is located. These photographs document the civil rights movement and I've spent 2 days there already. It's a remarkable exhibit. It's a remarkable documentation. It's a remarkable opportunity to reflect and learn and have deep conversations and hopefully be motivated to do when you see the struggle, when you see in black and white the price that was paid for the struggle. It's motivating because that struggle is still going on. So without further ado, I invite you all either to the opening, and also it will be here for 6 weeks. It's free. We give this as a gift, as an important gift to the community and to ourselves. So you're welcome to visit the dairy and go through the exhibit. If you're interested in a docent-led tour and someone who knows, is trained and more knowledgeable about the photographs, you can sign up at naacpbouldercounty.org or the Dairy Arts, the dairyarts.org websites. So I'm very proud to present my colleague and our Vice President, Sheila Davis. I'd forgotten your bio, but Sheila is incredibly educated, incredibly talented, has a long career in medicine and health equity, and is currently
the director of the Office of Health Equity
for
CDPHE.
And Jared Polis,
Yes.
under Jared Polis.
Yes.
So here you go.
Well, thank you for inviting us to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King with you this evening. I consider MLK Day to be one of the most patriotic in that it meets we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal test in a way that July 4th and the Thanksgiving do not. But what is MLK Day really about? Well, let's begin with Dr. King's remarkable life. Finished Morehouse College at the age of 19, graduated from Boston University Seminary at 26, where he studied the writings of Mahatma Gandhi, was ordained as a pastor at Dexter Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama at the age of 26. He led the successful Montgomery bus boycott, founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, authored many books, including Stride Toward Freedom and Why We Can't Wait, pushed President Johnson to pass the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, organized the March on Washington, was the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. I still think that's true, but I have to check. Close friend of Rabbi Heschel, mentored generation of civil rights activists, including the late Congressman John Lewis and Diane Nash, who is in her 90s, and the list goes on and on. But what distinguishes King from many is his commitment to the practice of nonviolence. You may recall that of other civil rights activists, the Black Panther Party, Malcolm X, left violence on the table. Now, it is one thing to practice nonviolence as a privileged white person in Boulder in the 21st century, and quite another as an African-American man who is leading a movement to dismantle white supremacy in the Jim Crow South. Remember the brutal murders of Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman, 3 young civil rights workers in Mississippi. King received death threats for over a decade. On a daily basis, he was stabbed and beaten, and his home was bombed. Yet he remained committed to this practice. So how did he define nonviolence? I wanted to share an excerpt of a speech of his, but we're going to go low-tech this evening. So all of you should have a handout on the 6 principles of nonviolence. Does anyone want to read the first one? All right, Jude.
Nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. It is active nonviolent resistance to evil.
The second.
Nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding. The end result of nonviolence is redemption and reconciliation.
3.
Nonviolence
Number 5.
Nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. Nonviolence resists violence of the spirit as well as the body. Nonviolence love is active, not passive. Nonviolence love does not sink to the level of behavior. Love restores community and reduces justice. Nonviolence recognizes the fact that all life is interrelated.
Thank you. And number 6.
Nonviolence believes that the universe is on the side of justice. The nonviolent resistor has deep faith that justice will eventually win.
Thank you. So now we're going to turn to the dialogue section. We only have a couple of minutes. I want to return to my original question. Martin Luther King Day is really an invitation to consider committing to the practice of nonviolence. So I ask you, how do you respond to that invitation?
I never thought of it that way before. You mentioned that, and saying that it's also a patriotic day, I never looked at that. So that's helpful.
Thank you.
I think that a lot of times we see things that disturb us, but we don't step up. Sometimes you need to step up. If something bothers you, that someone's not being treated right, you have to step up. And that way that person doesn't feel alone, feel supported.
Yeah, it's being an ally. Yes.
Piggybacking on that, I do think that people of all minorities need allies. And I think sometimes it's in a place like Boulder where gratefully there isn't a great deal of overt violence in comparison to the places I grew up in Detroit. Um, there's a need to have the courage to have the tough conversations, to stand behind those that are being persecuted.
Some would consider, I guess, communities of color the global majority. So it really depends on where you're sitting.
I think we need to make people accountable that are creating violence.
Yeah, it's hard, as we're seeing at the national level. Yeah.
I think we need to take it to heart and spend each day looking for opportunities to resolve conflict nonviolently and respond to people who act otherwise. And
If you could speak up.
educate.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
Is part of that mission.
yeah. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I appreciate the comment about all life being interrelated, so that it's beyond just relationship stuff and humans, but that, that there's also the nonviolence for, the earth and other living things that, are essential for people's health.
Absolutely. Thank you for lifting that up.
I think that a lot of us have come from very different places with very different cultures, very different responses to anything that involves the other. Because we're the other also. We're a minority. I had this conversation with
Well said.
As someone who grew up in Martin Luther King era, I think the thing that reminds me every year at this time is his message was to accept as to endure. And I think that we have to step up. Rather than by accepting or not doing anything, we can go believe that we give. And he was an incredible example. He didn't accept it. It wasn't violent, but every day he didn't accept it.
That's right. Well, I hope we can continue this dialogue. Thank you for inviting us, as I said, to the celebration.
Thank you, friends, for joining us and for sharing some of his ideas, for keeping a legacy strong and alive. And I want to lift up one other piece to this. If we are really allies, if we really want to be partners in bringing healing to a very broken and fractured world, we have to try and not just listen and share and reflect together. We can't just pray together. Those are the things that we do to fill ourselves up so that we can go outside, so that we can help, we can confront. When you hear the jokes or somebody saying something that is hurtful, we have to take a moment to recognize and say, I think you're better than that. That we can check ourselves and recognize where we've come from. And because we might have experienced something doesn't mean that we know everything that somebody else is going through too. We have work to do. We have learning to do. We have some listening to do. And I do hope that we all grow in this together. A prayer for our community on this day of reflecting, of celebrating, of witnessing. Source of all being, creator of all life, may your goodness find its way into the hearts of all of your children. May those who wield power do so with a balance of wisdom, justice, and compassion. May those who feel powerless remember their intrinsic worth and also act with a balance of wisdom, integrity, and compassion. May we all feel called to action based on the injustices of racism and see ourselves not as enemies of one another, not in struggle with one another, but as human beings, created in the image of God, connected to one another's well-being. May all of us come to acknowledge the racism that is pervasive in our region and our nation. So let's commit to sitting down with one another in honest dialogue, opening our hearts in compassion to one another, bearing witness to the pain and fear of one another. And may we commit to joining together in acts of justice that will bring about equality, equity in education, economic opportunities, law enforcement, judicial proceedings, and health care. May each of us come to understand that ultimately my experience of freedom, justice, and peace is inextricably linked to the freedom, justice, and peace of every other human being in our city, county, country, and world. May we open our eyes to the invisible lines of connection that can unite us with a clarity of vision to continue to work for a world where every person's life is valued, cherished, and loved. Let's move toward the conclusion. 500